Yeah. Hope everyone's good. So we've got three live sessions today, which should be amazing. Yesterday was absolutely amazing with David Meltzer. Wow, such an inspiration. Absolutely, you know, I was like so energetic yesterday evening. It was amazing. So our live session is with Property Mom UK. Sometimes this connection takes its time. Uh, Let me cancel this and let me send you a request. Here we go.
Hey,
Are you
finally. How are
absolutely?
you? How's it going? Okay, the audio has cut out.
Hey,
Yeah,
can you
I
hear me?
am. I am. How are you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. I can hear you clearly.
Super.
Let me just
How are you
good.
doing? Are you well?
I'm good. I love these your live sessions. They're really cool. They're really, really
Thank you
amazing.
so much. And
Yeah.
I really like your Instagram handle, Property Mom UK. It's like you're the mommy of the property in the UK. Good to know
Pretty
that.
much. It's funny because it just came to me like in January because I was hustling between trying to get somewhere for some viewing and I had the kids and I was like, and I was like, I should really have something called Property Mom where I'm talking about different dramas. So yeah,
It's
but it's
good.
been
It's good so people can find you on that. I mean,
yeah,
I
handle
don't think
very easily.
I don't think I know anyone has Property Dad UK or something like that. But
Funny enough, I've seen a guy on Instagram actually. He does have Property Dad, but
oh, is
I'm not sure he's very active. I just happened to run into his handle, and I was like, "Oh, you're Property Dad."
it?
Yeah,
So before we start, thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate it.
yeah,
The whole point of me doing this is to share the knowledge and the positivity and share the story of what people are doing with
mm,
people who may be stuck in negativity right now.
yeah,
A lot of people have been furloughed, a lot of people have been made redundant. And obviously, I come from a property background, and that's why I have a lot of individuals who do property to talk to them about property and how did they start on their journey with
yeah,
their first investment, all that kind of stuff. Because buying a property is not easy. You need a large capital, but
indeed,
that's not only the case with me. Like I go out to other different businesses, other different individuals that are in the entrepreneur business sector,
yeah,
or even they may have a service job, something like that,
hmm,
just to bring that positivity into people that look, tough times can come, but you got to stick by it and you got
yeah,
to get out of it because opportunities come during these times.
yeah, exactly.
And the good times are is when you grow that business. But when you
Yeah,
start, it's always during these
it's always a
pandemics
rocky,
or wars or things like that. People come
indeed.
out of it, recessions, all that kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, so the whole reason for me to do this is to give that inspiration to people to start
Okay.
on their journey during these times and hear how people have done it. So thank you so much for coming on,
No
and I look forward to
problem.
listening to how you got on to the property journey, the property investment sector, and all that. So before we start, Property Mom UK, if you can introduce yourself as to who you are and what you do.
Okay. Okay, so my actual name is Dalapo Oni, CEO of Citygate Property. So it's a development company, but also has a management aspect to it where we manage our own properties as well as properties for other individuals. So that's been going on now for about 10 years. But I actually
Okay.
got into property investing 2 years prior, so about 2008, similar times as this period where there was a lot of fear in the market. I'd been watching the market for about a year or so before then, just trying to get the knowledge. You know, it's very important if you're getting into property that you understand the way it works as a business.
Yeah.
So I always knew I wanted to buy. You know, a lot of us in the UK, we know we want to get on the property ladder. That was always the aim. But at the time when I looked into it, it looked like property prices were a bit overpriced. That was about 2006, 2007. So that once the crash happened, it became pretty obvious that if you didn't buy now, then you're not a serious person. Because if
Yeah.
property prices, there's a lot of fear in the market. At the time, I used to go to auctions just to see what was happening. And you could see that a lot of properties that used to be priced at ridiculous prices, even in central London, they were just like, they were a bargain. If I knew now what, you know, like then I would have just picked them up. There were properties in Maida Vale. I remember one property in particular in Camden. It's one of my biggest regrets till today. But I was just too new to the game. It was a whole block with four individual flats.
Four
And the
flats. Yeah.
whole block was being sold for in fact, it sold for 600, just over 600K. And I remember at the time knowing it was a bargain, but just not having that sort of, I
I
was
mean,
like, if anything goes
that
wrong.
property right now must have doubled, tripled.
Oh no,
Easy.
doubled. It's at least 3 million by now because it was in
Yeah,
a prime
absolutely.
area. But because property
Absolutely.
prices were just absolutely, you know. So anyway, I got into property then, bought a property with a friend of mine, and we sort of shared the cost of buying that property. And then,
Before we get into what
mhm,
you're doing right now, can I just ask you that was this always your aim in
mhm.
life that you wanted to become a property investor or a property developer or just a property manager? You know, was this always the aim that you wanted to get into property, or no? You had something different in mind where you were at university or college and you thought that, okay, I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a journalist or an
Yeah.
architect.
Yeah, so actually, I always wanted to be in business. I knew that. But I always wanted to work for a big four. So, like, I always wanted to work in consulting, KPMG, and that's where I started from. I started off in KPMG consulting. I actually went to school in the US for my postgraduate. So, I
Okay.
worked there for a bit and then moved over here and then started working with BP. So, you know, I was in oil and gas in the city, young girl, having fun. It was good times. But within it, I always knew that, yeah, I wanted to do
You
more.
mentioned you worked in the US and you
Mhm.
worked in the UK. How
Yeah.
long did you work in the US for? What, a
I
year,
worked with US for about 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, for about four
While you
years.
were working there and while you were working here within a large company, corporation, all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff, did you see a massive difference in
Culture.
the ethics, the culture, the organization, the management, the treatment of employees, all that kind of stuff? Was there a massive difference? Because we all come from the Western world, right? We're classed as the Western world,
Yes.
you know, but yet there could be differences. So
Yeah. No,
did you
there are
see it?
major differences. So I would
Okay.
say that the UK has definitely picked up in terms of almost matching the US now because of the entrepreneurial spirit that you now start to see. But
Okay.
that spirit was very, very much in the US. So most people that I knew in the US had a second or third job in
Okay.
addition to
So
whatever good job they had.
they never stuck to. I mean, not stuck, but they never
Just
had
saw,
one income stream
no,
for them.
no.
They had two, three
It's just a
income streams. That
mentality. Yeah, it's a
absolutely,
mentality.
absolutely.
They always wanted that sort of, you know, the American dream that you have, you know, you're able to not only have
I
your
mean, they
job, but
produce
one
the
day
most
become an
amount of
employer.
billionaires, anyways.
Yeah. So I know. So that was the American dream. And so lots of people had that. That was what they
Yeah,
wanted to achieve.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, when I moved here, because it was in a corporate environment, I definitely felt a bit more relaxed here. You know, there was never this sort of tension to try and overachieve. It was like, you know, let's have a balanced life. You know, let's go out and have
Yeah,
good times and
yeah.
have a good job. So I definitely noticed that difference for sure. But yeah, here I just found my whole footing here, and you know, the UK has worked for
So
me.
what you were doing in the US was it
Mhm.
different to what you were doing in the UK,
Yeah,
or
they
no?
were quite different because they
Okay,
were both sort of analyst project management roles, but the US was more towards financial services and that type
Okay.
of thing. But this was more towards oil and gas. So
Okay. So
yeah.
how is it working for a financial service company and
Yeah, so financial services in the consulting space, so it's quite tense, it can be quite difficult, very, very much of a competitive environment. But it was good. I think it was a good experience for coming straight out of school into that kind of environment, because it kind of toughened you up for what was later on going to become, like a business. I have to run my own business now. So all of that is training and growth. That's why I always say never, like some people that are working that kind of disdain what they're doing at the time, like, no, I really want to have my own thing. No, learn from the experiences that you have then, because
absolutely.
at some point
Because
you will learn.
I think it's always good to get that experience outside than your own, because if you make a mistake, the other person's paying for it, not you.
Exactly.
Apart from the fact that you get
That's
fired if you do something wrong, But it's the fact that it gives you that stepping stone
It
to
does.
learn on, like shoot the gun using someone else's shoulder.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
I mean, that's how it is, right? You bring that experience. Like I was talking to a gentleman from Saudi a few days ago, and how he sort of applied what he learned throughout in his life, and now he's applying that to his family business. All the experience that he gained in life, it's that's the way to move forward. You can't just keep on doing, because then it just becomes, I don't think it's a hobby anymore. It's a habit. You just go to your
it's just part
9
of you.
to 5 and that's it. So when you did oil and gas in the UK, did you enjoy it? What were you doing in that oil and gas company? Were you analyzing the market or?
Yeah, something like that. So I was in the sort of middle office doing a lot of management analysis for the trading floor. So I was assigned to a trading desk. So I used to do a lot of work trying to get all the stuff that they needed to get done. I needed to, because I was interfacing between them and the technical team. So I'll break down all of the requirements, let the technical team understand so that they could deploy for them. So it was very much a business analyst role, which was a good role and it went well. It's just that for me, the issue was anytime.
How long did you do that for?
I did that for 5 years, actually. So I did that for 5 years. And it was like in the 3rd or 4th year that I started to actively look for something else, only because there were issues around, like at that time, BP had some, I don't know if you know about there was a major issue they had with
the blast or something.
Yes. So around that period, I'd worked really hard, but because the company as a whole had issues, they then had a freeze on promotions, on not pays, but actually on pays. So there were no increases in bonuses, nothing. So that year,
the CEO or the chairman took a bonus, right?
Well, actually, I don't even remember, but I remember feeling really hard done by in that year, because I just thought, after all the hard work that you put into it, at the end, just for the company to have an issue, and then it just doesn't trickle down to you, the mere mortals in the company.
This is what bigger companies, I feel, are about. You work for them, but then when something goes wrong, it's like no one's there for you.
I definitely felt that way, but I didn't quit my job then. Like, it was a steady, good job, so you won't, it's not good practice to quit your job until you have something that you're replacing your income with, isn't it? So I just started looking towards, I knew property I always wanted to buy, so I thought it was a good time, especially as shortly after is when the crash then happened. So it was,
I guess 2008.
In 2008, exactly.
And at that point, I mean, I don't know how bad the oil markets went. I mean, today they're
pretty low now.
But at that point in 2008, did they go massively down as well?
Yeah, so the issue is that oil had already, at least BP as a company, had already gone through their own, a year before, had already been through their own issues with relating to that, to what had happened. So for them to then come straight into the financial crisis, it just really worsened things for them. So it wasn't a great time, to be honest.
I saw it on the news for like weeks on weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so when you finished with that company after 5 years at BP, during that time at BP, did you always think that I need that second stream of income to come in? And
Yes,
were
it.
you working towards that stream while you were at the job? Like you mentioned, you can't leave a job until you replace it with an
Yes.
income. So
Yeah.
how did that go about? I mean, how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so that's exactly what happened. So I started looking, I was still in employment, which was very good because you need good employment to be able to get that mortgage anyway. So,
Yeah,
I didn't really understand the nuances of that sort of thing until I became a full-time property investor. And I understood the value of having a full-time job to you actually have like 2 or 3 years of established income. At the
yeah.
time I quit, I think I had 1 year of established income. So there were some lenders
Okay.
that wouldn't lend because they wanted you to have 2 or 3. But anyway, that's a different story. So coming out of, while I was at work, I used to go to different, go and view properties, like during my lunch break. You have to have that hustle. They say things like,
Yeah,
your future is determined by what you do between the hours of 6 in the evening to 11 at night, like at night when
absolutely.
you normally just be watching
Absolutely.
TV.
Absolutely.
These are the things. So I used to research, see which properties I was
I mean, I'm
looking
not a
at.
guy. I'm not a guy that wakes up early in the morning at 5 o'clock
Me
and starts,
neither.
starts my day and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe in that because you need your sleep,
Yes,
you
you do
know.
need your sleep.
And I tend
Until
to
you have
wake
kids.
up. I mean, yeah, at a certain point. I mean, then you learn, right? That come on, carry
Yeah,
on, keep crying. It doesn't matter.
exactly.
But it's like when I wake up in the morning, I wake up not with an alarm. It's my eyes
You just
open
wake
up and
up.
I have to be awake.
Mm.
You wake up, right? And that's what puts me set for the day. Not waking up early. Waking up
Yeah.
early is like, what are you waking up for? No one's
Yeah.
awake. No one's gonna take your calls. You know, who are
So
you?
I think,
Okay, fair enough.
yeah, you
Emailing,
can get
fine.
some work
Okay,
done, I
understood.
guess.
But I do sleep late,
Yeah.
and
So
I
you
sleep
either
late.
sleep late or you wake up early.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
but sleeping late doesn't just mean that I'm watching TV or doing
Yeah.
that, First I used to do my live sessions at like 10:30 at night, because a lot of
Oh,
people were free at that point. But
okay.
then I thought that I can't get in touch with everyone. And then I thought, okay, let's do these live
Let's
sessions
do
in
it.
the morning.
You have a lot of
And
live sessions, right? Like at least 3.
absolutely, I do like 3 a day. I mean, I've picked it up. I've picked it up in a way where I enjoy it, man. I enjoy talking to people. I
Really?
enjoy listening to their stories
Or
because
you?
you share those stories with people. Like you mentioned,
Yeah.
someone might be in a job right now. Someone doesn't know how to earn that second stream of income. So they
Yeah.
might listen to this live session and say, if she can do it, why
Yeah.
can't I do it?
Of course.
And that's that split second inspiration that someone needs. And if they can
Yeah.
get it from watching this video, perfect. Done my
Yeah.
job,
And but you know what's
And
interesting?
obviously,
What's
sorry.
interesting about what you say is, so when I got into property, I actually got in with the whole idea of flipping or buying to
Yeah,
sell, buy
yeah,
to hold.
yeah.
But then within that whole experience, I realized we need cash flow strategies. We can't just be living off of capital appreciation and the
Yeah,
property in value.
yeah,
We need
yeah,
strategy. So I came up with the 14 different ways that I've used within, that's not cash, that you don't have to have that initial deposit for, but that you can generate income in property. So
yeah.
obviously there are property related services, being a project manager, being, like different things you can do within property, which I put on my blog, which basically means that you don't have to wait until you amass that massive deposit to then buy property. Do you understand? You can, alongside creating your side hustle, which
Hmm.
is a property where, let's say you had a flair for interior design, you start creating and now because of digital marketing and because of Facebook, Instagram,
Social
everything,
media. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so social media makes it so possible for anyone. Back in the day, I always say this thing that I'm sure if we do the stats of companies, there's the stats of 90% of all new businesses go out of business in the first year. And I'm sure that they need to reevaluate that with all of what's going on,
All
because
of the things that is going on. I mean, there are
yes,
businesses that
like
within six
this,
months or
they're
a year, they
already,
are like bang, like they
yeah.
made it. But
So
yes, so carry on about your property journey. So
yes.
when you finished with BP or while you were at BP and
Mhm.
you did all these viewings in the afternoon and You mentioned something that is really good. What I want to touch upon. A lot of people don't know who to go to buy their first property.
Yeah,
Right? Like you mentioned, the lenders want that comfortable income that's coming in for a
they
2 year,
do.
3 year, maybe 5 years.
Yeah,
Depending on all of that, they base their figures of what they're going to give you
blend.
and
Hmm.
what they're going to get back, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
How hard was it for you to fund
yeah.
your first deal?
So the first deal, actually, I would say the first, second, third, fourth deal were simple. There was no issues. It actually started on about the fifth or sixth deal that I had. When at this point, because in my first year I did quite a lot in terms of purchasing
And
properties.
these were all flips, or these were like buy
Yeah,
to let?
so the first one I ever bought was not a flip; it was just a buy to let. Then the
And where
next
was this?
three were all flips. They were all just
No,
flips,
where was your
right?
first one? Your first one that you bought?
My first ever flip was a random purchase in it was in um SE15,
Okay.
Peckham. So it
Yep.
was a
Yep.
small one bed flat. I saw it in the auction. So that wasn't a bad deal because I
How much
bought
did
it
you pay for it?
at the time it was 100 and I bought it for 120 and I sold it for 150. So and
Wow.
that was within I got an offer within 2 weeks of just doing the property
Of
up.
refurbishing it and all
Yeah,
that
and
kind of stuff.
refurbishing. And the refurbishment didn't cost me because at the time I'd met somebody who was in property and he gave me his builder. So everything came to about 7,000 to just do like a one bed refurb because it didn't need that much. So for me, imagine coming out of work straight into yeah, I hadn't left work. This was just before I left work. And I just thought, oh wow, from one deal. That imagine if I just sort of took that money and just started to,
And you did not do any
reinvest.
property course. You did not do
Zero,
any.
nothing.
All you did was research. You sat on
I
Rightmove,
did a lot of
Zoopla.
yeah.
You went to the auction house portals, all that kind of stuff.
I went
Why
to a
I'm
lot of
saying this is
auctions.
because a lot of people these days pay
Hmm.
for unnecessary courses
Yeah.
when they
I
need.
must yes.
Yeah.
So and this is what I say. I say is I was sort of lucky because I met that guy that I said had his builder. Because I met him, he was able to kind of put me through things in a way. So it wasn't like a formal mentorship, but at least if I had any questions, I could ask him. Because to be fair, I could probably have won it, but there are some things that could have easily tripped me up in the process. So one of the
Mm.
key issues I would say is dealing with builders. If they figure out that you're new in the game and you don't get them inherited from somebody that they trust, then you can be in for it. Like that 7K deal that I got for my first deal would have probably been 15. Do you understand? Or almost
Mm.
20, because he would have just seen the green in my eyes and just know this girl has no idea. And would have tried to, and it's true. If he had said, oh, we need this implemented or we need this installed, I wouldn't know because I'm new to it.
Do you think if you were in the game a bit longer, maybe that 7K would still become 3.5?
Possibly. Possibly.
So,
But now
so
I
you
can't
could
get a
still
one
say
bed
that you
done
got
in.
done a bit.
No, but you know what's interesting? Now I
Yeah.
can't get a one bed done for less than 10. I can't. It's not even possible.
And the
Like
prices have gone up. I mean,
they've gone
wages.
up significantly.
It's not. Cost of living is not cheap. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I see the same fact. I mean, being a property agent and a lot of owners or property developers, they try to
Mhm.
bring you down on your commission. Like, fair enough, but you do realize that the cost of living is not cheap anymore.
It's not. It's not.
You
What do
know,
you charge typically for agency fees?
for lettings, it can be anything between 5 and 8%,
Okay.
depending on how much green I see in your eyes.
Well done. Well done.
But in terms of sale, it's market rate between 1 and 2%.
Yeah, that's typical.
If it's like you mentioned, if it's a one bedroom flat in SC15, something like that, I'll go in with like 1%. If it's a multi-million pound mansion in
Hmm.
Knightsbridge or an apartment, something like that, I'll go in with 2%, possibly agree at 1.5, something like
Okay.
that. So it depends. Again, the green in the
Yeah,
eyes.
the green
Right?
in the eyes.
It's one of those things, right? That you know that okay, I can charge this much to this person,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and that's why some people don't have their
it should
prices.
property. I mean, and that's just the property agent. Now,
Yeah.
let's say if you put yourself into context right now,
Yeah.
and I come to view your place as a buyer,
Mm-hmm.
and you are there as a vendor, you are at the viewing,
Mm-hmm.
you will see the green in my eyes, and you will be like, I know this person's going to buy it. I can squeeze it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everyone has that. It's human
Yeah. You
nature
can say
that
it's human
when
nature.
you
Yeah.
see that, you instantly judge
Yeah.
that person and you say
Yeah.
that, okay, that's it.
That's let
Then
me.
obviously you sort of negotiate and
Yeah.
everything, and then come to a deal. But either way, But it's
Yeah.
good to know that when you get a builder to do your job, either inherit him or either make sure that you know him from way back.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I do small refurbs and small
Okay.
property developments, and I've been doing this for the past 4 years now, 5 years.
Okay.
And the builders that I've used are the same builders that I started with when I started my
Yeah.
job in 2008.
Yeah.
The electric. Okay, I have a set of maybe 5 electricians, 5 builders,
Yeah.
5 plasterers,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I'll send them out a quick broadcast on WhatsApp, like, look, I have this. What are you gonna quote?
Okay.
And I know from that list that who's the best, who's the worst, who
Yeah.
is
And you
good
use
for
them
my
at different times depending on the
exactly.
property.
If it's a property that I'm doing closer, because most of my refurbs are
Mm-hmm.
just outside London
Okay.
or up north kind of thing. So the closer I am to London, I know what sort of finish I need,
Yeah.
and that's how I tend to
That's how
get
you
them on
evaluate
board.
it. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I
Sometimes they
have a
come
whole
back to
thing
me.
with builders.
Yeah.
I have a whole thing with builders. Like I have builders that I work with. But if say there's a project and I need to get a new builder because maybe the scope is just like there's a project I was working on where it was with a bank and they needed me to get a different type of builder. What I now
Oh, the
do is
bank mentioned that you need a
yes,
different
no,
type.
because my
Wow.
builder didn't meet all of their qualifications. So, but what I've learned from
And only then they would give you the lending?
yes, because they were going to do the development. So the development, they were funding the development. So
Ooh,
they
this is the
wanted
first
to
one
vet
I've heard,
a piece of that. Sorry?
This is the first time I've ever heard this, that the
No,
bank
they will.
dictates
It not
this
necessarily
builder to
dictates,
you.
but they'll tell your builder to provide some, some documentation, references, different things. And if he doesn't meet their requirements, then they'll no, it doesn't matter how long you've used him. They'll say, look, in terms of our insurance policy against this property, we need him to have so and so. And
And
also
so.
provide collateral warranties, different things. So he didn't meet it. So I went to meet my structural engineer. And this is what I picked up from one of my build projects where the builder provided the structural engineer. And at that time, I had a conflict between my own structural engineer and his own structural engineer. And eventually he sort of bullied me into using his own structural engineer. It was the worst mistake I ever made, because that means any structural issues at the property, I had to defer to his own builder, his own structural engineer. So I couldn't vet whether those things were actually valid or not. Do you understand? So when he said, oh, we need to put the entire perimeter underneath your building for the foundation, then I had to start going to look for other structural engineers and paying them to come and sort of challenge what he had said, and then managed to reduce the amount that he wanted to charge me by £4,000. So you see what I mean? Like, so working with new
So you
builders.
got so it's always good to do your
So get your structural engineer and get him to provide you a builder. So at least that's your guy, it's your friend, it's whoever it is. Get him to provide a builder if you have to go that way. But referrals are always better, I think, than just going to pick somebody off there.
Did you ever think that when you got this, the bank asked you that okay, you need to get this and this builder with this and this qualification? Didn't you ever think that now that I've got the funding, why shouldn't I go back to my previous builder?
How do you mean?
Like, you could
Oh,
have gone
no,
back
no,
to...
no. The bank is not that stupid. Of course not. They release the funds to you slowly. So first you do part of the project, then they come and evaluate it. Then they come and check it. Then they give you then they release the rest of the funds to you. No, they're not just going to give you the full amount. No.
Okay. And we've got a comment here. Basically, the lender wants to ensure the builder is competent.
It's compliant to the way that
to successfully complete the project. The more experience, the safer their money.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's a good point.
Which makes sense, to be honest.
Thank you so much for your comment. It's good. So how many properties have you done so far? How many have you completed?
So in
How many have you
total,
sold in total?
I've sold of the ones I started with, I sold 6. In total, I'm based in London, so I've done 25 projects.
Wow.
So,
And in the space of 10 years.
yes, 10 years. So it's not like I've done. So in my first year, I did quite a lot.
Yeah.
But over the years, there's some years. So there's a year I didn't buy any properties just because I was having babies. So in the years there was one.
You were enjoying the capital appreciation of those properties.
Well, thankfully, but I think it was 2020 when did I have my first child? 2015. I was this pregnant at the end of a project. Like I literally was wobbling into, and I was like, I'm not doing this again because I was shouting on the builder. I was this heavy. I was like climbing up the stairs. It was the second floor. Woke up. So I was like, nah. On my second, I'll just take it easy. There's nothing worth this. So I kind of chilled in the year 2017 when I was having my second baby, and guess what, it ended up being a good thing because that was when Brexit pretty much happened. So property prices then I think have fallen off since then, and then I got back into the market once my baby grew older. So
that's basically with your own research, without a certain amount of capital, with a job in line that you were doing, you started your second income from the property deals that you did and the money that you generated. And today you're financially free.
Yes, I am. However, rent to rent is what really, really kind of kicked, the financial freedom. Because property is all well and good. But for me, the rent to rent aspect of it really helps your money to work much harder. Imagine I'm in London. So any deal I'm getting into London, you better have your 100K ready at the very least. But with rent to rent, you're looking at 10K and you're controlling properties that are like, all over the city. So for me, rent to rent really sort of boosted. So before this crazy COVID mess happened, I was managing 15 properties rent to rent.
And that was like a guaranteed rent income that you were providing to the owner.
Yes, so I had different structures. So some of them were I was managing the property on behalf of the owner, and some of them I was renting directly from the owner. So it depends on the owner's appetite. Some owners don't want to take any risk, so they just want you to give them a guaranteed rent. Some owners are happy to take the risk, and maybe they need access to their property. So
do you think that if this rent to rent was introduced in the market earlier on, then you would have gone ahead with buying your properties?
Rent to rent has always existed. You see, it's so funny. I stumbled onto rent to rent because I told you that I was doing refurb flips. So my first flip ever, the property I got an offer in 2 weeks, but then it didn't complete for another 4 months. So, and I paid mortgage throughout that period. So I realized that I needed short-term tenants to be in the property while I was trying to sell. So I just went on Gumtree. At the time, I just typed in, I don't know I'm sure we had Google then anyway. So I just typed in short-term tenant, and I just saw Gumtree. So Australians were amazing. Like they all used to come and go on Gumtree and just rent out any properties. They didn't want long-term tenancies. So that's how I got into short-term rentals. So it's so funny that I then met an agent who had some properties pretty central. And I said, I knew how much I was making from the short-term tenancies, and I knew how much I made from my long-term tenancies. And there was such a big discrepancy. So when I met this agent and he had a property and I was trying to get him to rent it out with the management style where I would rent it out for him the short term, but he wasn't buying it. And he said, look, I want steady income. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll give, because I trust this property. It's a stunning 3-bed flat house. I'll give you, what is the ongoing market rate for it? And he said 2005. And for me, 2005, I was like, sure, I'll give you the 2005. And then as long as it's okay to manage it the way I want to manage it. And I've had that property for 7 years. Now, the interesting thing is that...
Quick question we've got from someone. So this rent to rent, you were doing like service accommodations, HMOs, or a mixture of both?
So a mixture of both. But my primary one was service accommodation just because of the margins. So for this in particular was service accommodation. Because remember, how I got into service accommodation was because I was trying to get short-term tenants to fill my flipping property so that it wouldn't be empty.
Yep.
So for developers, it's a great business because you have these properties that are on the market anyway, which you have to stage. Because I found out the first property I tried to sell, it wasn't empty. It was the second property I tried to sell was not furnished at all, and it was so difficult to sell it because the bedroom seemed so small. The minute I put a bed in and just styled up the room, it went like, so I now realize, I have to furnish the property so people can see what the property is going to look like.
I mean, you can try as much as you want to make people understand or viewers understand who are coming to this property that, look, the bed can shape up this way, you put it there. I bet you even put the sockets and you put the, on the side of the bed, you put those sockets in for the lamps and everything. Still, they will not be able to imagine
they will not be able to see
will a bed fit in here and how will I get off. But as soon as you put it in there,
then they can see it. And because it's already dressed up like that, then it just makes sense for you to have people staying there and paying your mortgage. So at the beginning, I wasn't even trying to make any money. I was just trying to cover my mortgage and plus. And then I just realized that when I put it on Gumtree, then it would get snapped up like that. So then the next time I'd put up the price. So I started to understand that, short-term rental is just like a holiday. It's just like a hotel. So, and if you check out hotel prices, and they're even getting more in the apartment. So so one day I went for one of these training.
They are getting done now.
Yeah, sadly.
The whole hotel industry. So now that you've got your hands into a few things, so you're doing your flips as well, you're doing your rent to rent as well.
Mm-hmm.
How are you now adopting yourself to become crisis proof? That's a new word I've learned today. Crisis proof.
I like that, crisis proof.
How are you adopting yourself to become
honestly, this crisis, other than the fact that it's been devastating in terms of death and all of that, which is, you have to put that out there that, it's sad that happened. But what this has done for me, though, it made me stop working in the business, because I was running around all the time. I started thinking more strategically about where I wanted the business to go. I'd read a book last year in January. It's a book called 24 Assets. And he had already started to position my mind about, if you're a big bricks and mortar company and you don't have any digital, like he talks about something called product clusters, where you have your main product, but you have all these different products that complement that main product. He gave a great example of BMW. BMW, you go there for the cars, but they actually make more money from the finance. Yes, and the accessories and all of those things. Now, he said, how stupid will it be for BMW to then say, let's get rid of these cars because they're only bringing in 60% of profit. Let's go and just focus on the financing side of things, because that's where
cars are the main product. The cars are the fact that people know BMW. The other products are just there. You go to any bank, they give you a mortgage, they give you savings account, they give you this, they give you that. But it's always the fact that you have a main product.
Yes.
And you try to push that main product with other streams of products that you have.
Thank you. So that's what I started to think about last year. And that's what brought me into this whole crisis. And that's the only thing that saved me, because I'd already started to put in place building blocks that I've now started to build up now, because I started going to all these digital marketing courses, picking up all the knowledge, understanding how to build assets. And he calls it 24 assets, because it's talking about all the different assets your company has to have to survive over the next 5 to 10 years. If you haven't built those building blocks, your business isn't going to, it's not going to survive.
It's a recommended book by yourself.
Completely recommended, in fact. 24 assets.
I might check it out myself.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Before I wrap up, I always wrap up on this note that the whole point of me doing this is sharing that positivity. And to be honest, there's a lot of positivity and knowledge that you shared over the whole of the live session. But the last point of me is, what advice would you like to give to the younger generation out there, the young entrepreneurs out there, people who are sitting at home, don't know what to do next, can't strategize their next move? What would you advise them in terms of moving forward and forgetting about all of this and moving forward in life in the positive direction.
Yeah. So I think for me, as an individual, you have to find what it is that makes you tick, what it is that gives you that joy and that passion. Remember when we were talking about my previous job, it was a job, it was okay, but it wasn't, you can see the difference, the way I talk. All the people that know me,
I can see a lot of green in your eyes.
Yeah. they've seen the immense evolution because I found what I love to do, right? And property is hard. Like, it's not a joke, it's hard. But it's like, I love property now. So, you know, you have to find that thing that makes you really want to get out of bed, so that even the difficult days, you're like, yeah, I have to get up, but okay, I'll do it, because you actually like to do it. So you have to find that and develop that. And then it's important to find somebody who kind of is already doing what you're doing or what you want to do, and kind of just become either their friend, or just so you have an idea of how it really is on the inside, you know. So I know some people that will attach themselves to somebody who, if say for instance they wanted to become like, you know how you talked about being like an estate agent, or like, exactly, so where you're managing properties, where they will just sort of find somebody who does that. And you always find somebody in your sphere, I'd say the sphere of influence, there's somebody in your influence circle that can connect you with what you need, you know. So if you say, look, I want to be a fashion designer, there is somebody you can find. And you know, with social media now, you can find it even easier.
The biggest business that a business gets is the word of mouth.
It is. The big,
like you mentioned,
because they trust you already.
Exactly.
Trust you already.
And that's a great piece of advice that I'm sure a lot of people will learn from. So on that note, Property Mommy UK, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing all that positive vibe, your journey from start to finish. It's been absolutely amazing having you and discussing that. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much. It's been great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye. See you.
Bye-bye. Super. So that was Property Mom UK, who is a property investor stroke developer in the London property market. Do check out. Yes, thank you so much, Raj Karan. It's it was an amazing live session I've had on property so far. I mean, I wouldn't say so far. There are other people as well who've given a lot of input, but yet I really love the input that Property Mom UK gave in terms of what she's done, how she's done it. So do check out this live when it's posted again. And thank you to all the viewers that tuned in. It's been a pleasure. This is why I do it, you know, to give out that knowledge of people who've already experienced that in their life. So absolutely amazing. Thank you so much to everyone. Have a great day. Live session coming up at 3 and then at 6. So do join me. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.